So welcome everyone to our Cyberops Associate Instructor Training Center class, first class meeting. It's February the 7th, which I know class started last week technically, but you also probably noticed we've been poking around. There are no due dates until February 14th. So I usually have this meeting, get you started, get you kind of settled in a little bit, and then we get going. I'm not going to ask you to do an introduction because I've read your intros on Canvas, so I do appreciate that very much. I do appreciate everyone doing that because, as you know, we work for a thing called a governmental organization, which means you have to dot your I's and cross your T's. So you are now officially in the class because you have completed the attendance assignment, and that is what that is. I am going to real quickly share my screen because I want to make it clear to you that honestly, canvas.stanley.edu, about the only thing you're going to use this for is for doing this intro assignment. You can use it if you want to also access Netacad or the Netlab server. The links are here. But other than this assignment and grabbing your seat token, honestly, that's all we use this for. I may ask you during the semester at the very end to log in one more time just to show, quote, attendance. But our majority work will be done in other sites, not on this site. I will tell you this. I do strongly recommend watching this video. I will also warn you that there's been a slight change to the way you get into O'Reilly now. Instead of clicking in the drop-down menu, okay, so normally you go to it, and I'll show you real quickly. And I'll actually show you this, but normally you go and click that not listed here. O'Reilly has changed slightly. And that if you go to Stanley, you go to future or current students, go to library. And so when you watch that video, the difference is going to be this. When you go to your A to Z list, go to O for O'Reilly. Instead of clicking in here and seeing not listed, it's right here in the very first. It's institution not listed. So that's the only difference. And then here you put in your email for Stanley. And let me show you what you have access to now. Have any of you had Safari Online subscription yourself? No. I used to pay $50 a month to have access to Safari Online. And this is not all of Safari Online, but it's a large amount of Safari Online. So one of the things you'll notice that we do have some playlists here. And one of the playlists that I have shared is one called Cyberops Associate. And inside of this playlist is an entire video course on Cyberops Associate and the official cert guide. So you have access to this as a Stanley Community College student. All you have to do is you watch the video I just showed you that's inside of Canvas and log in using your Stanley email address, and you will have access to all of this. I will tell you occasionally it gets a little quirky and will say that you're not logged in. When that happens, either open a new browser window or do an incognito window and log in, and that will fix those issues. But this is the full cert guide for Cyberops, the entire book. So you've got that book for free as part of being in a class with Stanley Community College. And you also have, again, that entire Omar Santos and Ron Taylor video course for Cyberops Associate. So that is completely free for you as part of being in our instructor training center. The other thing is this. Let's say you're wanting to learn. Somebody give me something. What are y'all studying right now? Just give me a topic. Let's just do Python, just for poops and grins. All right, here's all these resources that you have for free. There's a fundamentals Python, there's that. By the way, that one's just released in April 22. This one is May 2019. So what topic do you want? Let's say, I don't know, give me something, somebody. Let's just look something up.
Well, I'm taking the CCNA2 routing and switching class right now, too.
CCNA. In CCNA, you've got Kevin Wallace's entire video course. You've got the official cert guide, and you've got multiple other books for CCNA. Exam Cram, all of these are in here. Here's Todd Lamley's new second book that was just released last year. So you've got pretty much a ton of information. Some of it's older, but a lot of this is the new exam, the 200-301. So we even, in fact, if you go to your home and you do go under Explore and look in the shared playlist, you should be able to see the playlist that we have in our shared playlist here. And one of them is CCNA, SCC, CCNA materials. And inside of here are all those materials, some of the materials, not all of them, but some of the ones we found for you. Now, I'll warn you about this resource. Sometimes books can disappear overnight. For instance, my CCNP book I was using, boom, just disappeared overnight. There was no warning. So I can't promise you all these resources will stay here, but this is a phenomenal resource for you. And we have it for everybody. The other little thing I'll tell you is this: your Stanley email will stay active for about a year. So it's active for the semester you take the course plus 2 semesters. So for the next almost a year, you're going to have access to this O'Reilly database that you can go in and look and read things and study and do professional development. So it's another resource we're providing to you as your instructor training center. Any questions on this? Because there are, like I said, there's a ton of stuff in here that you could really just, you could spend hours and hours going through and doing things here. There's an entire live lessons in subnetting from Wendell Odom, who has written most of the CCNA books for Cisco Press. So there's Kevin Wallace's network programmability fundamentals. Kevin's done a lot of the stuff, not like I know him personally, but Kevin Wallace has done all the stuff for networking, programming, and DevOps. So, but be aware, this resource is here, and that's why I mention it as part of this course and why I put it in here, so that you'll know that you've got access to it. Any questions about that? All right. Other than that, you've done the labs in here. I do want to pull the syllabus up because I want to make sure none of you freak out on me. You haven't had my classes before. My name is Kelly Caldwell. I think I've met most of you. If not, I am the program head of the Cisco Networking Academy and Cisco Academy Support Center at Stanley Community College, and I'm our lead instructor at our instructor training center. We support 224 academies in 17 states. I also am over this little item here, which is the Online IT Academy, which is our program at Stanley Community College. It offers online certification training in areas from Cisco, Palo Alto, VMware, Red Hat, AWS, pretty much you name it, we do it. Last but not least, I run our data center here on campus, or I'm the manager of the data center. I'm not the data center lead anymore. That's actually Brandon Crump. So I've been at Stanley for 23 years. I've been with State 25.27 years. Not that I'm checking, but yeah, I've been here a while. So I've been around for a very long time, like many of you too. So the good thing about having over 25 years in, if they really tick you off, you can walk out the next day and say, see ya. So they don't really put you on too many different committees and things because they're scared you might walk. But I've been teaching these courses. In fact, I came back here from CPCC. I was a network engineer at Central Piedmont for a year and got the offer to come back here and start the Cisco Academy with Bill Fry back in '99, and I took the offer and have been here ever since. So I've been in instruction for quite some time. This course is the most non-Cisco course you will ever take. All right, which is good because it does focus a great deal on some open source. I will tell you up front, those of you who are on the cutting edge of network security will go, we're using an old version of blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we are. Okay. You know, some of the stuff that's on the virtual machines is not the latest, greatest version, simply because you can't keep up with it if you're trying to keep an environment that's stable. Having said that, the good news about this class, it does have some Cisco marketing in it. So we're going to have to tell you all about Cisco Identity Services, ICE, and tell you about AMP endpoint and all that stuff. But for the most part, it is very much non-Cisco, which is kind of amazing. They made this class. It maps well to the Cyberops exam. I do have my Cyberops certification I took it back when it was 2 exams. It's now a single exam. So we are actually focusing on the version that is a single exam. we're going to have two different ways you can do your labs. One is installing your virtual machines locally if you want, or you can use our Netlabs. I'm game either way. You can do it the way you want to do it. I can kind of see that you've done the labs a little easier in Netlabs, but if you're going to be running yours using a local set of virtual machines, I actually suggest you set it up for yourself locally so that you understand how it's going to work in your classroom and you see it in your classroom. Okay. So I'm game for either one. I just want you to know Netlabs is going to be available for you to do the lab. So you're not going to have to set anything up if you don't want to. But we're going to basically look at becoming a level 1 SOC analyst. And that's what this class does. You can read this, so I'm not going to read to you. This is the part I want you to not freak out about. And so when you look at the schedule, you probably went, holy crap, I can't do all this work. Well, you're not going to have to do every single thing. For the instructor training class, now, if you were a regular student, yes, you would do everything on this syllabus. All right. So you would hate me, but you're not a regular student. You're going to have to do all module exams, 25 module labs of your choice. So I want you to pick the ones. Now I will tell you, you're going to need to do the ones down towards modules 25 through 28. Those will be the ones you kind of want to focus on because your hands-on skills exam are going to use the skills in those. But you don't have to do every single module lab. If you're looking at one, for instance, one of the first labs is to do an analysis of a hack and report on it. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, y'all all done that. You've all got probably Security Plus or you've done Security Plus level work. I suggest you look at the lab, but if you look at it and say, I've done this a million times, skip that lab. Don't do it. Okay. So if you have time, do every single lab. If you don't, what you've got to do is 25 labs of your choice to be able to pass. Then I do expect you to do a final exam score of 75 or higher. You do get multiple chances, but let me explain something to you. You are going to make a 75 or higher on the final. Okay, you will make a 75 or higher on the final. Why? Because you get a voucher of 70% off if you do make a 75 or higher. So don't make 100. Okay, so if you understand what I'm saying, this is being recorded. Don't make 100, but make more than a 75. All right, that way you get your voucher. And you do have to do the skills lab, and the skills exam lab will have to be done on my Netlabs. That one is the only lab I will require absolutely on my Netlabs. That way I can see it and I can check to see that you actually spent time doing the lab and you turned it in. So, but other than that, any questions on the requirements? Because I don't want you freaking out and going, oh my gosh, there's 4,000 labs in here. I can't do this. I'm not asking you to do every single one of them. I know you're all working full time. I know that we're all in the middle of this crazy COVID insanity that hopefully will stop sometime very soon. But you know, we are in that position where I understand you're a full-time instructor. So any questions? Y'all are way too quiet. You're scaring me. All right. One of the things I do want to point out in here is first assignments that are even due are on 2/14. So you got a while. A lot of these, for instance, details of an attack, visualizing black hats, becoming a defender. Most of these labs, I would strongly suggest you just look at them and say, okay, yeah, this is a Security Plus assignment. Quick question. How many of you have the Security Plus certification or have taught a Security Plus class? Okay, Ernie, you've got it. Ralph's got it.
Yeah, I've got it.
So Jared's got it. Nick's got it. Okay. All right. So all of you, when you look at this and you're going to go, okay, wow. And you probably will do a lot of that with a lot of these labs. I do strongly suggest you at least open up every lab and look at them. That way you'll understand what your students need to do and get a feel for how much time is needed for each lab. But you'll probably decide not to do any of these first labs, and that's fine with me. You do want to do this one if you want to do the labs locally, okay? And this is, by the way, the lab is set up for you to install and use VirtualBox. There are ways to take the OVAs that they give you and tweak them and run them in inside of VMware Workstation. I don't really have those right now, but you can do it and it's pretty easy to do. But I would actually suggest if you're going to do this, that you actually do it the way it's written in the lab, because that's the way your students are going to try to do it. This class, by the way, requires no equipment at all. No Cisco gear, no routers, no switches. The only thing that's required is a set of virtual machines. And for most of the class, it literally requires one Linux virtual machine that can be run on most machines. Where we get into some trouble is when you get further up in the class and there's like 3 or 4 virtual machines that need to be loaded. It gets a little more for some PCs can handle, and that's when you may want to start using Netlabs, but it's not much. It's pretty easy to use. I did inside of the syllabus put the labs that are on our Netlab system. So if it's linked and it's underneath here and it's got this above it, then this means you can either do it using your Cyberops workstation VM and VirtualBox, or you go to netlabs.stanley.edu and do it. All right. So that just gives you a quick overview here of what's going on. The other thing I will warn you about is don't think that each module, that just because of the numbering, it's listed at a certain time. Just pay attention, and I'll show you in a minute, to due dates on these particular assignments, because all the due dates have been set. Here's my other thing, folks. You are adults, all right? If you miss a due date, I'm not going to freak out, okay? If you are trying to do a lab and you get busy, you have things you're doing at work, you get, heaven forbid, you get sick, I'm not going to freak out if you miss any of the due dates. The due dates are there because if you're like me, I'm lazy and won't get anything done if there's not at least a due date to give me a kick in the pants. All right. If it's always optional, it's optional. And so I've learned if I don't at least put due dates on inside of NetAcad, a lot of times my instructor will go, well, what's the due date? And so I put due dates on it for my type A people who have to have due dates, and for people like me who had to have due dates to actually kind of guilt us into doing things. All right. And I'm being facetious there because I also know we're just so busy that if there's not a due date, a lot of times we'll put it off and put it off and put it off. So be aware, due dates are not set in stone. They're there to give you guidance of where you should be in the class at a certain time. Okay. Any questions about the syllabus? All right. The syllabus is also go ahead. Somebody.
Yeah, from teacher to teacher perspective, when we hit 25 labs, do you want us to quit submitting labs? So,
yes, but normally what I would say is save your labs for some of the later stuff. So a lot of this stuff, like for instance, how many of you have created user accounts in Windows? Yeah. I mean, that's not, just open that one up, look at it. But when you get down here, have you used encrypted data and decrypted data using OpenSSL? Some of you may have. Have you created snort rules or extracted an executable from PCAP file? Some of you have. So I would say yes, but wait your 25 toward the bottom part of the class, because I think those will be the ones that you haven't had as much experience with. The other thing I'll tell you this, it's perfectly fine to go forward and work on these early. Okay. So if you decide that, you look at the chapter on, great example, these Windows and Linux operating systems, there's a couple things in here that's not bad to go back through. But if you decide, you read through it and go, this is just, I know all this, keep moving on, keep moving on. For instance, this entire chapter right here on network protocols, Ethernet, connectivity verification, and ARP, if you're a CCNA instructor, this is like second nature to you. So you don't need to trace a route or use Wireshark or, any of those things. So you can just move on. All right. I really expect that we'll be down into module 12, 13, 14 a lot faster than we would be, because we can actually just skip down a lot, because I think with your experience and your abilities, the first 8 chapters are going to be like, okay, thanks, we'll move forward. I do want you to read them. I do want you to do the exams for them. And I do want you to open the labs and look at them at least, but I don't think they're going to be anything that gives you a big surprise. I mean, most of you have seen TCP and UDP and HTTPS traffic and those types of things. So not a problem there. So the answer to that was a long-winded yes. Stop after 25, but I would weight them for the 25 that's kind of toward the bottom. All right.
I planned on playing with all the labs, but I just, you know, I can also appreciate you not wanting to turn around and grade a ton of stuff either.
Well, and it's fine if you want to. I mean, if you upload it, I'll try to grade it. I'll try to go through and I'll definitely look at it. So, you know, upload it if you do it. I don't mind looking at it at all, which is a good segue here, which is how do I upload my labs? Well, one of the things is inside of netacad.com, when you go into the class, I have for all of you, let me turn the editing off so we don't have all this junk here. I have, here's the syllabus again, by the way, in case you need it, but I have uploads for every single lab that we have. Any lab that does not require Netlabs, you can just go into the curriculum, get that lab. So let's go into the curriculum here. Go to the course index, uncheck all, check labs, and get on here and let's just say the first lab, cybersecurity case study. So we're going to scroll down. Now, I know this is a PDF, but what you can do is just open this in Word and fill in your answers. Okay, so any document that is a PDF, just open it in Word. Word will open it and convert it to a docx, and then you can just upload that as your assignment. Okay, in fact, somebody's already uploaded a couple things, which is good. All right, so that's all you really have to do with the ones that are non-Netlabs. If it is a Netlabs assignment, so it's an assignment that is actually inside of Netlabs. How many of you have never used Netlabs before? Anybody not used it at all? Have not? Okay.
I haven't.
Okay. So when you go into netlabs.stanley.edu, I sent usernames to you. Your username is typically your full, unless you've had a previous account, it's your full email address, and your starting password is Cisco123. Okay. Once you get logged in, it asks you to put your email address in and set your time zones and all that thing, which is fine. But once you get logged in and you want to do a lab, it's really simple. You just go to new lab reservation and schedule. You won't have all of this, by the way. You will just have like schedule lab. I got all this because I'm an instructor, but schedule lab for myself. Oops, I got logged out. Hold on one second. Just a second here. Yeah, I know it's bad password security, but so new lab, schedule lab for myself. You're not going to have 16 billion classes like I do. All right. By the way, that is actually my initials, KFC. All right. So I've got 6,000 classes, but this is the class you are in, this KFC Cyberops Associate ITC SP22. You will only more than likely see this one, or those of you who are taking CCNA 2 also, or other classes may see both your classes. But you click on the class you want to do a lab on. For us, we've got two items. One is the skills assessment, which you will use at the end of the class. The other is a list of all the labs that are available inside of Netlab. So here are all those inside of Netlab. Okay, so let's say I was going to do lab 303. You just click on that lab and you can schedule the time. Now the beauty is the red line is right now, but you can schedule any time into the future. Here's the other thing I want you to be aware of. It looks like we only have 4 pods. Well, that's just not acceptable because there's more than 4 people in the class. Well, we actually, if you hit this little button right here, notice the numbers going up. We actually have 20 pods. So we have 20 pods total. So if you log in here and somebody's already using the first 4 pods, just go on out here to the right and find you another pod that's not in use. Okay. So I could click right now, and that would start me a lab that starts right now. But if I knew I had time Wednesday night, okay, and let's say Wednesday, say at 5 o'clock, I want to do a lab. Well, I can click right here and schedule that lab for the future. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do the schedule. You can do a maximum of 4 hours. I would schedule most of these labs for at least 2 hours. In fact, just go ahead and schedule them for 4 hours. And then if you get done with it, I'll show you how to end your reservation. So I just did a future reservation, and you'll see it sitting in here now saying that on the 9th of February at 5 o'clock, I've got a lab from 5 to 8:30. If I wanted to do one right now, I go back to that same class. And I'm going to do the same lab, but I'm going to do it right now. And I'm just going to click at the red line, and that will start it right now. So red line, click here, do it a couple hours. I'm just doing a couple hours on this one. Now, this has to boot up. So if I click enter lab, you'll notice it's spinning. So it takes a little bit of time for the virtual machine to boot up in our data center. If you are in our CCNA classes, be aware that they take longer than the the Cyberops associates to boot because they're booting real gear. So they're actually booting up real Cisco devices. You'll notice this is booting up a Windows VM. Okay, so here's our topology for lab 303, identifying lab processes. But here is the key item about Netlabs, this content tab. You will notice that this says this lab has been updated for use on Netlabs Plus. If you are doing this lab, you cannot use the document from inside the curriculum. So you cannot go in here and say, okay, lab, what is it? Identifying process, lab 303. Okay, so you see, here's the lab for that. You'll notice this one does not say modified for use in Netlabs. The one in Netlabs does say it. So when you make your reservation, go to the content tab, download this document to your PC, all right, and open it in Word so that you can put in any answers to the questions. All right. Now, one thing I will tell you in Word that's kind of funky is when you first download it and open it in Word, when you go to type in your information, it actually will be in clear, it'll be in white. So you can't see what you're typing, so just change it to a black text and it works. Now, if you have something that can write in PDFs, just open the PDF and use the PDF. I don't have a PDF writer on my PC, so I convert it to Word and just and do that. If you can use a different text color like blue or something, that helps me out a lot too, because I can see your answers quickly. And then you just save it with your name, the lab number, and you upload it for me right here at the lab upload. Okay, so you'll upload it. Okay. Any questions on that? Let me show you what's kind of cool. If you have a multiple monitors, you can actually undock different items. So you could put the virtual machine on one side and you can put your content, okay, open a new window. You can do this on one side if you had, dual monitors. And let's see, there's your client over here. All right. The other thing that can help you sometimes too is if you are, if you've got this on a monitor and it's a little bit weird looking, put on, say, actual size so that it doesn't look weird. But you'll notice you can't hit Control-Alt-Delete. So to do that, you have to click here and put Send Control-Alt-Delete. Because if you hit Control-Delete, it locks your PC. So that's right there. The other thing that's kind of neat is if you want to show me what you've done, you can actually take a screenshot and that will be stored with your reservation, and I can go look at it. I'll ask you and show you more about that as we get closer for you doing the skills exam, because I'm going to have you do that in the skills exam. This is really good for any class that uses Cyberops, especially for your student classes, because guess what? There is no way once I'm logged in here, unless someone sits down and does the lab for me. I can't spell. Unless somebody sits down and does the lab for me, if your student does a task like this very first lab is opening up toolbox here. I said, open up toolbox, going to the sysinternal suite, going down to TCP view, find TCP view, opening up TCP view from the sysinternal toolbox, agree, okay. And then one of the things you have to do is open a web browser and show the web. I got to do it always on top, but you see the web browser opening up here. Well, if my student, if I had the student go in here and go take snapshot, take screenshot, I would now know there's the screenshot, and you can put in notes if you want, but you don't have to. But the only way this screenshot was done was by my student, me, logged in on this lab. So I can do submit. And now, as the instructor, I can actually see that underneath that reservation the student had. So it's really kind of neat because we can prove the students did the lab, or at least the person logged in as Kelly Cottle did this lab and uploaded it, because there's no way to fake this. Many times instructors have students do like a screen snap Well, students could share screen snaps, but they can't share this because it's only available underneath the login for that student. But kind of cool, kind of a neat little thing there. If, however, you get done with the lab, so let's say I'm finished with the lab, I've completed the lab, I've saved my answers, I've completed it completely, saved my answers, I'm done with it, I've still got more time left, I've still got 2 hours and 14 minutes. Instead of letting the lab just sit there and time out, please go to reservation and end reservation now, because that way it actually will take the pod, clean the pod, and make it available for the next student. All right, because the good news is every time it boots, it's clean, completely ready for the next student. There's nothing left on it, so it's being restored to a snapshot. The other thing I ask is if you do a lab in the future and suddenly find out, well, I'm not going to be able to do that lab on the 9th because I've got I don't know, my cat's sick or whatever. You can go in here and cancel the reservation so that the pod's not being held, because even if you don't do the lab, if you schedule it, it's going to boot up and be in use waiting for you during that time period. Okay, Ernie, questions? Because I know you haven't used it. Anybody else hasn't used NetLab before. Questions about NetLab?
No, that's straightforward. The only thing is we're doing the virtual machines. Are the instructions the same in the labs?
Okay. If you do the virtual machines, you need to use the lab. You need to use this one. Okay.
The old ones.
Use the one from inside the curriculum. Correct.
Oh.
Yep. Use the one from inside the curriculum, which they're normally very close to one another.
Sure.
But occasionally they're slightly different. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing you're going to have to do, if you're going to use the local VMware VMs option, you must do this lab right here, which is installing the VMs locally, which there's an entire lab here. And it goes through and tells you how to get VirtualBox, how to download the VMs, because you got to go to netacad.com and download the Security Onion and the Cyberops VM. You're only going to be using this workstation VM for the first 8 chapters. Then you'll start using both. But it actually walks you through exactly what you have to do in order to use the VMs. They're fairly big. They're about 600 to 800 megs, so they're a little big. So you may want to download them at work and put them on a flash drive to take them home if you got slow internet like I do at home. But I'd also actually just go and download VirtualBox and put it on a flash drive and take it home with you. But if you're going to do them yourself, do it like this. Okay.
Yeah, it went fine. I had VirtualBox already installed. I did them last night. So
Okay. All right.
It worked fine. The instructions were perfect.
The only issue and I will tell you this is a straight up warning for you and your students. A lot of times if they have a laptop, virtualization at the hardware level is turned off, and that will give them an error message when they're trying to run VirtualBox. I see that all the time. So just be careful if they try to load VirtualBox and try to boot one that says unable to boot due to virtualization settings. They probably need to go into their BIOS and turn on hardware virtualization. So that's the biggest issue I've seen with trying to do them locally. But the beauty of this class is that you don't have to have any equipment, and it's pretty resource unintensive in terms of what's needed for the students' PCs at home. So, any other questions?
Just a heads up, I did take it to VMware Workstation instead of the VirtualBox, and the Arch Linux going into VMware Workstation had a little bit of issue with the network card, and I had to go static an IP into the Arch, but other than that, it worked fine.
Okay, all right. I knew it's possible to do it in the VMware, the workstation. You just have to kind of, like I said, play with it a little bit. So it's not a big deal. So again, I don't care which way you use it. If you want to bounce back and forth, do some on mine, some on your local, that's fine. It's nice to have, it's nice to do them locally if that's how you're going to teach your students. Okay.
And actually, that's probably what we'd be doing. So.
Okay. Well, the other thing I'll tell you this, if your school is supported by us, which I think all of you are supported by our Cisco Academy, I'll give you access to our NetLabs. I mean, I'll create a class for you. And what we've been doing is we create a class, we make you an instructor in the class. You have to create your own student accounts and you handle all the password issues and those types of things. But we've been doing that and giving out free access because honestly, the Cyberops doesn't cause a lot of resource use on our servers. A single server can support 20 pods and no problem. So if you want that, just let me know and I'll set it up for you once you're ready to teach it. Or if you're already teaching it and got an instructor teaching it that wants to use it, let me know and I'll give that instructor access. So it's not a problem.
Yeah, because I think we could use the Cyberops access for a couple of ours, Ralph.
Just let me know, Ernie, and Ralph, same thing. No problem at all. I can,
Yeah.
what I need from you is I need the instructor's name and email, the name of the class, and then the number of students, because what I do is I track it. That way, when I go to get grants, I can say I've helped X number of people. During COVID, we really blew it out of the water. I mean, we actually helped around, I think it's almost 1,800 students with access to every, it was like 60 schools or 50 schools and 1,800 students. We were giving away access to everything from Cyberops to CCNA during COVID, because I mean, you had to think about it. A lot of people were told, "Hey, you got to leave campus and you're going online tomorrow," and they were like, you know, the labs, they couldn't get in their labs. They were literally just forced out of their labs. So we did everything we could during that time to try to give away access. And we'll still help you as much as we can. And even if there's a CCNA course that you really need access for a class for some reason, I can give access to that too. Just let me know.
Great.
Let's see here. Other items I'm trying to think about. So our three main sites are Canvas, which we will probably never go to again. Netacad, which is our primary site where your course is, where your reading content is. Everyone knows how to get to the reading content. So when I tell you to read the modules, your exams are right here. I have not turned on the exams yet, but I will today because we closed registration. One of the things you all know about Cisco is if you turn on exams before a student is actually enrolled in the class, it only enables for the students currently in the class. So if you go in and you've got all your exams activated and you add a new student, that's none of those activations will apply to a student who's added after the activations. So I always wait a couple of days till everything settles down in registration, but I'll turn on your exams for you. But here's your exams. By the way, I'll show you real quick how to do that. Just go to Assessment Center if you've never done it before. I actually do a profile, an activation profile. And one of the things that I can tell you is this: I give you 10 attempts on the module exams and 3 hours to do them. I don't use them as a punitive grade or as a way to really just hammer you. I want you to use them as a way to learn. So, you know, inside the assessment center here, when I go to create the activations, I actually give you up to 10 attempts for 90 days on each one of these exams. So our class ends sometime in April, but I always actually go a little bit past the end date because I know invariably somebody will be past the end date. So now all the exams on for everybody for the next 90 days. You have 10 attempts and you don't have to ask me to re-enable them for you. I'm also going to go ahead and turn on the certification practice exam. So create advanced activation here. The problem with this one is I can turn it on for 90 days, just like the other. And so I'll do the practice cert and I actually do 4 hours on that one for you. Give you 10 attempts on it. And last but not least, I will do, I think the practice final exam though is only for a week. So I'm gonna have to wait on that one. Nope, they let me do that for 90 days. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and turn that on too. This is one of the few courses. In fact, you know what? I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one course in all of the Cisco Academy that you can activate the final exam for up to 90 days. Yep, look at that. Actually, it's 365 days. This is the only course in all of Netacad that will give you more than 1 week for the final exam. So I'm going to be lazy, folks, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the final exam. Just because I am lazy. No, that way I won't forget it. So when you get to the point you want to take it, you can. And I will turn on the course feedback because we know that is required. Oops, I got to do an advanced activation. That's funny. The feedback's only available for 30 days, but you can do the final exam for up to, that's hilarious. All right, just remind me. I'll turn feedback on if you need it. But so now your exams are all on. Your NetLabs access is available. If for some reason you don't know your login for NetLabs, send me a quick email and I'll send that out to you. But it should be, most of you had an existing NetLabs account. So if you do, it's your existing account. If not, then it was your Stanley email address, and Cisco123 is your initial password. And then you'll have to change it immediately. So folks, that's all I really have for today. Just a good intro and ready to go here. Any questions from me about our course, about where we're going? Overall, anything? Everybody good? Okay. All right.
I'm good.
I'd get to reading, get to looking through the labs, get yourself settled in. I will say, honestly, even if you're going to use the local, you're going to use your local option only, do a couple labs on Netlabs just to get a feel for the system, because I think you'll really like the system. It's pretty useful. I mean, it really is. It's the only way we've been able to do online training and make it to where our students can get the hands-on that we want. I will tell you this, the beauty of this course though is you can really run it online effectively without a Netlab system, because it's got that built-in virtual machines that they can download and use locally. So it's a very nice course in that respect. All right, I am going to stop the recording. If there are no other questions, any other questions? None, I will stop my recording, stop my sharing first. Then I'm going to stop my recording.